Kansans Fueling Kansas, sponsored by Kansas Corn and Kansas Biofuel Retailers.
Well, welcome back here to another episode of Kansans Fueling Kansas. I'm Noah Ochsner, joined alongside Robert White on Zoom. Thanks for joining us today, Robert. First, if you can tell us a little bit about what you do with the Renewable Fuels Association and your role with the organization.
Sure. The Renewable Fuels Association, commonly known as the RFA, is celebrating its 40th year as the trade association for U.S. ethanol producers and those companies that provide goods or services to them. And of course, several advocacy groups make up our membership as well. I've been at the RFA for 13 years now, kind of lead their industry relations business development section now, but came up through the corn growers and market development side of things when I came up into the ethanol industry almost 2 decades ago.
What are some ways that RFA works to inform consumers about safe and reliable fuels such as ethanol?
Well, ethanol in automobiles has become second nature. It's in a lot of states, it's not even labeled like Kansas for the most part. E10 is approved for use in every engine on the planet and every engine obviously sold in this country. And that goes from automobiles, medium duty vehicles, down to lawnmowers, chainsaws, boats, side by sides, you name it. But there is a lot more recognition around the smaller engines because they don't get a lot of routine maintenance like cars do. They don't get used every day, and the fuel can tend to sit around. So there are some differences there. And so a lot of our consumer advocacy work focuses on those more vocal segments of the fuel business. And our goal really is to get the consumer to a neutral or positive place before they even reach the gas station, because at that point, they're going to make a selection based on other factors probably than something we've convinced them to do.
And what blends of ethanol are people able to use in their boats or marine products?
Sure. So any of the small engines, those are really restricted to E10 or 10% ethanol, which is found everywhere across the country today. Anything above E10 has to be labeled, and it clearly states what products it can be used in. E15 is starting to get some traction across the country, and you'll see an orange and black label that says for 2001 and newer vehicles or flex fuel vehicles. And then, of course, there are some mid-level blends all the way up to E85, which is oftentimes called flex fuel, which can only be used in flex fuel vehicles. So there are really 3 major fuel options with ethanol and ethanol blends, but only one of those is good for the small engines. The rest are focused specifically on the engines of automobiles, trucks, and cars and SUVs.
When it comes to protecting the environment and even strengthening rural economies, ethanol can play a great part in that. Could you just talk a little bit about what ethanol can provide for both of those sectors?
Well, obviously, we grow a lot of corn in the state of Kansas. There's a lot utilized for ethanol, and the more ethanol we use, the lower the greenhouse gas emissions of our fuel, and obviously the carbon intensity of that fuel is dropped as well. So it's important, even when you're using small engines, it matters a lot to use those blends that can help reduce those emissions.
Alrighty, well, perfect. That's all the time we have for this time on Kansans Fueling Kansas. I'm Noah Ochsner. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Noah. Today's story will re-air tomorrow morning on Fox 43 AM Live. And this concludes our 13-part series sponsored by Kansas Corn and Kansas Biofuel Retailers.